Welcome back. This is still the Polity reaching you live from Abuja. Like I said before the break, we will be delving into the issue of inflation. Nigeria's annual inflation rose in September to its highest level in about 2 decades at 26.72%, amid a worsening cost of living crisis in Africa's largest economy. The September inflation rate rose for a 9th straight month from August's 25.8%, the National Bureau of Statistics said on Monday, with millions of Nigerians impoverished due to the impact of President Bola Tinubu's reforms. And yet, amidst the inflation, Nigeria secured a total of $1.9 billion in loans from the World Bank in the first 4 months of President Bola Tinubu's administration. The loan is targeted at Nigeria human capital for opportunities and empowerment based on the information obtained from the website of the Washington-based institution. The objective of the loan is to strengthen systems for improved delivery of basic education and primary health services in participating states. The loans are for education, about $700 million, power, $750 million, and women empowerment, $500 million. Today, I've been joined in the studio by a guest, policy analyst and a social scientist, Dr. Mefor, to speak on this issue and what the implications are for the average Nigerians out there and what policies can possibly counter the effects of what we're seeing. Good afternoon and welcome to the program, Dr. Law.
Thank you, Famous.
It's good to have you.
Yes,
Right.
your opening play, very sobering. Just thinking what the ordinary Nigerian has been going through.
Yes, you jumped into what I was about to say. When you saw that news, how did you feel?
I felt quite sad. Because these are measures taken by the presidency of Bola Ahmed Tinubu are not inevitable. What I mean is that these so-called reforms could have been undertaken in a much different manner, well thought out and tailored and implemented in a way and manner as to achieve the desired objectives. And as we have been predicting all the while in the last 3 to 4 months that this presidency came into force, we had talked about 2 major headwinds introduced, very negative energy unleashed on the Nigerian economy by 2 headwinds, the Naira flotation and the fuel subsidy removal. The way and manner, they may be very beautiful policies, but the way and manner they were introduced never really showed that we could escape what is going on today. Let me recapture some of the things I said, some 1 or 2 months ago. I made it very clear that in an economy that is not producing and exporting much, you will not be able to float your Naira because you are not going to benefit much from export, since you are not really exporting. And if you look at the figures released by Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, NBS made it very clear that Nigerian export is still 75% crude oil dependent. What that means is that beyond the crude oil, you are merely exporting a balance of 25%, which is of no consequence where it comes to the quantum effect, of an economy that is targeting that level of devaluation should be able to gain, if indeed you should gain from it. What that means is that by the time Naira flotation was unleashed, Nigeria was not prepared. Even now, Nigeria is not ready to benefit from it and take the shock. And of course, the energy crisis introduced by the sudden removal of fuel subsidy, introduced a jolt on the economy. that has really unraveled everything and shown the underbelly of Nigerian economy, to the effect that indeed we are not in a position to totally leave fuel the subsidy, or what we may call pump price, entirely to the market forces. These are facts. Now, if you look at the fact that in the last 1 month, government has resisted the pressure to move the pump price of fuel from 617 naira upward until maybe a few days ago that we witnessed an increase to about 620, some places 630 to 635, and so on and so forth. But not a kind of jump that we witnessed from 197 to 540 to 617, not that kind of jump. But even this slight increase in the pump price of fuel has actually worsened the living condition of ordinary Nigerians. What am I really saying? What I am saying is that if government resisted the pressure of the market forces to move further up, maybe to realistically something like 800 naira, for a liter of fuel, government didn't want to allow that. That comes back to the same argument that many of us advanced, that you are not in a position to leave the energy sector entirely to market forces. In other words, government has to go back to the drawing board. What that means is that
to bring back subsidy?
Subsidy is on. That's one thing Nigerians need to understand.
But it seems the level has changed,
No, you see,
the amount of subsidy that was paid.
Yes, you may have reduced the amount of subsidy. The amount is quite a different thing. But the issue is that there is subsidy. I don't know the amount of subsidy that is at play now, but there is no doubt at all that there is subsidy. Because the price of crude in the international market hovers around $90. So there is no way you can be operating as at 620 that was prevalent when the price of crude was at 800 was at $80 per barrel. And you look at the disparity, it's quite significant. So it means that government is doing something in the gap to resist further movement of a pump price. And government actually said so, assuring Nigerians at a point that there will be no further increase. If you say there will be no further increase, it means that you are doing something to stop further increase. Because you can't predict market forces. Yes, because the market forces are not in your hands. That was why we said you need to do something, drawing the strings from the behind the scene, what you call unseen hands, unseen forces. That is what governments of the world do. Germany, US, all of them, they all subsidize one thing or the other. I'm aware that Germany is subsidizing the energy sector. They are subsidizing fuel. So, and you can find out, if a country as rich, as buoyant as Germany is subsidizing a fuel consumption in their place, who are you? A third world economy that is not producing anything. You know that everything about your economy is tied to the apron string of fuel and its consumption, because you don't have a developed rail sector, you don't have a developed urban mass transportation program. Even in Abuja, you don't. In Lagos, a bit of intervention of what you call the BRT. That is where it ends. Millions of Lagosians, are compelled to go by private public transport system, and the majority of them even trek. Long and unimaginable distances. These are issues. You are not in a position to do these things you are trying to do now. The question then is, why did the government rush into these policies? It's simply because of the external forces. IMF, it has been their position that Nigeria must remove fuel subsidy. World Bank, it has been their position that Nigeria must remove fuel subsidy. And the Tinubu presidency, in the what do I call it now? The desire to get on the good books of these people, it decided to roll out the policies without thinking them through. Because
so you believe on May 29th, when President Tinubu said fuel subsidy is gone, he was considering the international community?
That was where the pressure was coming from. There is no other reason, because he was not yet privy to the books.
But he made this was his, part of his campaign promises all the way back.
No, I agree.
For all candidates,
they all talked about removal of fuel subsidy, but not on your swearing-in day. It doesn't have to be. In principle, that was what I said. You tell the people that fuel subsidy is going. We can't sustain it. We set out a timetable. All the stakeholders will come to the board, to the table, labor, even students' union, all the stakeholders, transporters, market associations, women, men, we come and understand why Nigeria cannot proceed with this. We give ourselves a timetable of, say, 6 months. And the government will roll out things that must be in place. Nothing, as we speak. No buses. Nothing has been done. There is nothing to cushion the effect. You rolled it out, and to worsen the situation, you floated your naira. While you are floating your naira, what that means is that your naira will now have to take the beating of whatever is happening at the international monetary system as well. And that is where we are. So when the dollar is gaining strength in the international market, your local currency is losing. That is the complementarity.
But very quickly, there's always this explanation, so to speak, or narrative that this is happening all over the world in terms of the economy. Do you think that's a viable excuse or reason to understand what
when you say it's happening all over the world, your economy is local. You need to talk about yourself. For example, when they talk about the crisis in the environment, they are saying, look, carbon issues, they need to reduce carbon emission, they need to do this, we have to phase out the use of coal, for example. You have one of the largest coal deposits in the world. There are countries that are importing coal. You have coal, you're not using it. And you're talking about global economy. What kind of policy is that? Those who don't have coal are importing, utilizing coal to move and mobilize their industry, increase productivity and GDP and everything. You are refusing to utilize what God has given you because you want to be in the good books of Western powers. Nobody does that. That's why I say that these policies were really introduced to service our international image, make Nigeria to remain in the good books. That's why I use the example of coal, because we have one of the largest coal deposits in the world. Even China, as we speak, China is importing coal. I can go on and mention other countries that are importing coal, deploying coal to mobilize the energy sector. But you have coal given to you by God, you can't use it because you want to be on the good book of the international community. So when you say it is happening all over the world, I am at a loss, because no serious country is talking about what the world is saying if it is not to the best of their own local interest. And that is how we expect Nigeria to be run. Nigeria should be run based on our own local interest. Politics is local, your economy is local, everything is local. So if you want to remove fuel subsidy, there are things that must be in place. I mentioned a number of them. I have told you have not developed a rail system. You have no urban transportation system. Even your roads are not there. You don't have in fact, over 70% of Nigerian federal roads are in total disrepair. They are impassable. Anywhere you pass, you find the same problem. And you listen to Dave Umahi, the Minister of Works, repeat the same things I am talking about. It means that you are actually not prepared to remove subsidy. Now, you see the conditional cash transfer. You have rolled that out. It was launched yesterday also. You rolled that out. 50 million Nigerians 25,000 naira, right? Or something like that. Now, let us do the math here. If you say 15 million Nigerians, you are targeting maybe 4 to 5 person per family, well, that gives a multiplier of 60 to 70 million Nigerians. And if the Nigerian population is 210 to 220 million, what that means is that, 1 in every 3 to 4 Nigerians must have received these 25 million naira. Now, in your neighborhood, how many people have you seen? You can call your village, ask them how many of you are on this register. That is why I said that rolling out such a program without an authentic social register is a waste of money.
But if there was an authentic social register, do you think this works?
I still wouldn't have recommended it also, because it amounts to throwing money at problems. Because if you give a household 25 million, well, maybe it could take care of 1 or 2 things for 2 or 3 days. But what happens to the balance of 24 days left in the month? Do you understand that? Yeah. And it's not going to go on forever. I think it's going to run for about 6 months or something like that. What happens thereafter? What Nigerian masses need is not this cash transfer, even though they need money. Because we are now talking about inflation. What is inflation? Inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. That's the simplest definition of inflation. What that means, what it simply means is that the production side of the economy is simply not working. You are producing fewer goods. So if you look at the agro sector, for example, if you go to the agro sector, you will see the issues. You will see that the agricultural base of the country is still subsistence. What that means is that, feeding from hand to mouth. That's what it means. People who grow for family consumption, and then very little they sell in the nearby market. Now, where is the road to bring out the little they have to the central market? Where are the vehicles? The vehicles how many of them can afford the prohibitive cost of moving even from home to their farms, let alone from farms to the markets? Right. I think that such money ought to have been channeled to something different. Let me tell you the kind of things they should have channeled the money to. They should have channeled the money to the energy sector. They should have channeled the money to address, energy sector, do something about subsidy. For me, they got the money conditionally, right? But then you have gotten this money. You agree, you negotiate, you renegotiate, so that your people don't die. Tell them you would require 6 months to roll out, to remove subsidy. It's your country, not theirs. Who wears the shoe knows where it pinches. You will tell them, the International Monetary Fund, tell World Bank, that we have agreed to remove subsidy, but we need these things to be in place before we can remove subsidy. You use that money to bring in buses, 200 to 500,000 CNG compliant long buses that will connect the wards to local governments to states to Abuja. That is what you do. You need to repair your roads. Let the roads be motorable, so that the free movement of trailers that carry things from north to south, south to north will be possible. One of the reasons they gave for fuel scarcity in Abuja at a point was because the roads were too bad for the tankers, and these are facts. Yeah, these are the things we need to look at.
Yes, what you brought up is a very fair point, and I believe the oil marketers and suppliers the other day held a press conference where they spoke about particularly the roads in the south where it's supposed to come through. But away from that, I want to know where you weigh in on this argument that I see a lot when we see issues of inflation and we see how Nigeria is trying to tackle the economic issues prevailing. Some people very vehemently argue that what Nigeria has is a spending problem. That is to say, we have all the money we could need, but we don't know how to spend it. Others argue that it is a revenue problem, that we don't have money, we're a poor country. And then, there are some people in the middle who believe we have both problems. But I'd like to know, where you think we stand here, calling into mind what former presidential candidate and deputy CBN governor tweeted about yesterday, talking about, yes, Mr. Kingsley Moghalu, where he said he spoke with a certain governor. He didn't mention the names, and said governor said that they had discovered more revenue in some sort of project that was yielding about 1 billion, and they found out that after plugging leakages and all the holes, it turned out to be 100 billion naira. So the question is, what problem do you think we have, and what do you think is the way forward?
Our problem is very complex, and all the dimensions and the positions taken by the different schools of thought, they are all carried, because all of them have one measure of merit or the other. But essentially, first and foremost, let us take our bearing correctly. Nigeria is a very poor country, right? Very, very poor country, but living like a rich country. Everything we have said will be found within this. You are poor, but living like a rich person. It's like a worker who spends his salary in advance. Do you understand what I'm saying? You borrow to the point that there's no salary left. So when your salary comes in, what that means is that you don't actually have real salary, you don't have any money, because it has already been spent in advance. What betide you if your lenders have access to your paymaster and the money is deducted from source? It happens in many instances. Like pay as you go tax is deducted there from source. If you give that money to Nigerians, nobody will pay tax. Nigerians hardly pay tax. In fact, we saw recently, I think it was the FIRS, that was saying that the number of Nigerians that actually pay tax, both corporate and individuals, is not more than 40%. So what happens to the balance of 60%?
Who's to blame for this? Do you
think? The system. You blame the system, because if you do two things, Nigerians will pay tax. One, you compare them. Two, you show them where the money has gone into. Very simple. Nigerians will pay. For example, when they say they want to increase the tariff in electricity, Nigerians wouldn't mind increase in tariff in electricity, but they want to see light. But how do you want Nigerians to bear the brunt of darkness? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because you have what you call service charge, you have what you call fixed charges. That means, power holding or disco, or whatever you call them now, they don't need to actually supply light to get money from you. Because fixed charge means whether or not there is electricity, you have to pay the fixed charge, right? So they can go to sleep because the fixed charge is already there. It's going on. And meanwhile, you have a regulatory commission called the NERC, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. It is there, and these things are going on. They are there. If you go now, you see that they don't even announce it anymore. The number of watts you get each time you recharge, pay 1,000 or pay 2,000, you see that it is progressively coming down. You won't know until you check the balance of what you actually loaded each time you pay. What that means is that they are periodically, rapidly, progressively increasing electricity tariff without informing Nigerians and without commensurate increase in the volume of electricity, power output. So you can say that you are running a system where there is no regulation in all sectors. Have you noticed that even NCC is not doing anything about MTN and other GSM providers increase in? Do you understand that? In the charges. Do you understand that? If you load, if you watch, you will discover that your 2,000 is now fetching you less. Who agreed on that? At what point was that announced? That is why you have NCC. You understand that? Nigeria Communication Commission. That's why it is there. It's a statutory body. Paid, the workers there are paid with your tax money. Where are they? Where is NERIC? When all these electricity tariffs are being increased without any negotiation, without stakeholders, without any responsibility on their own part. So, coming back to your question, what is the position of Nigeria as a country? Nigeria is like an open field. It's a farm. In Igbo land, if a new area is discovered, a new farmland is discovered, what that means is that the farmland does not belong to anybody. So what the villagers would announce is that on so and so day, all the villagers are free to go and cultivate that land. You do what we call in Igbo land, okoto okolo. Do you know what that means? You cultivate as much as you can. That means as much as your strength can carry you. That's what is happening in Nigeria. So people are, occupying sectors and having a free day on the Nigerian economy as they would wish, because you don't have regulation. You don't. You have a, yes, I am a student of what you call a minimum or minimal government. Yes, government shouldn't be total in such a way as not to allow the people breathing space. I agree with that. But I will never subscribe to absence of government at all, where you have a situation that smacks of no government at all, no regulation. I just gave you a few instances where you have clear case of no regulation. Now, we don't have money, right? We don't have money. Government, rather than facing reality, is borrowing more. When you are borrowing more, you are like a worker who is borrowing his salary in advance. There will be no money left. This 26 trillion naira budget for 2024, much of it, perhaps half of it, at least 10 trillion, will be serviced through borrowing and all that. You do know what
the IMF is even, so, encouraging Nigeria to borrow. What do you mean?
You see, they understand the game. Encouraging us to borrow means time. You see, when you borrow more, you are compelled. You are tied to the Hebron strings of your borrower. Somebody is giving you, and giving you, you have to take conditions. There is no money they will give you without conditions. So when you are borrowing newer money, what that means is that you are accepting newer or new conditions, and these conditions will kick in the future. So even if it is not the Tinubu administration that is confronted with the consequences of those conditions, future government, because there will be Nigeria, unless there is no Nigeria anymore. As long as there is Nigeria, you have to fulfill those obligations. What that means is that when President Muhammad Buhari was exiting and leaving Nigeria with about 70 trillion, right? Between then and now, Tinubu has borrowed over 10 trillion already. And maybe by the end of the year, he may hit 100. When you add the one he has borrowed to the one he inherited, the debt profile of the country is moving up. But that is not a wise economic policy. They need to get down to production. They need to, when you want to export, there are things you need to do. You need to do something about your export quality, right? Now, you need to do something about production. You need to get down to even identify the products you want to reel out, the products you want to ship out. You want to understand why your products are rejected in the international market. Today, our own senior sister, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, is the DG of a World Trade Organization. That means we are in a position to move a lot more from Nigeria into the world market. But how much are we benefiting from her presidency of the World Trade Organization? Little or nothing, because the environment is simply not there. If you go to the agro sector, everything you need to really export, even as basic as cassava, will have to be cultivated in the farms. The internal insecurity cannot even allow the farmers to go to farm. Let go to farm to produce enough to feed Nigerians, let alone export. So you have a problem.
Well, just to continue, how do you think this the issue of inflation will affect businesses, and how do you think they can cope? I say this because using a personal experience,
Yeah.
I went to a regular vendor of mine, and I hadn't been there for a while. And as I was about, to purchase items, she began to say, there's this one is no longer that price. This is not. And interestingly, even before I went, I knew that because of the time gap, I knew that whenever I return, the prices will not be the same anymore. So how do you think businesses can cope, and even then bringing it down to Nigerians? But we have to start with the businesses, because these are people who probably get stock at a certain price, and overnight it becomes something else.
First and foremost, you need to understand that Nigerian economy is still import dependent, right? And of course, with the coming of Cardoso as the new CBN governor, he just got confirmed. One of the major things he did was to lift the ban on importation of 3 items.
Yes.
One of the items is toothpick. I don't know if you have taken a look. Toothpick. I think it's number 33. You can check it. Right? Toothpick. Importation of a toothpick. That will tell you how import dependent Nigerian economy is. If you are import dependent, do you understand what I'm saying? It means that the price of products in your local markets will have to be determined by the value of the dollar. So as long as the dollar keeps going up, local products, most of the products in your market are imported. They are therefore dollar denominated. If you look at it, as of today, dollar hit 1,150 and it's moving up. From all indications, it can only move up unless government takes the policy prescription we gave, which is to peg the naira to the dollar. There is no way we can escape it. Otherwise, by this time next year, we're talking about 2,000 naira to the dollar. Well, wait 1 minute. So, I need to download this to your question. How can the local retailers, deal with it? And of course, the consumers themselves, not just the retailer. The retailer has little or no problem. All he needs to do is to sell what he has at the price he bought. It's as simple as that. It's simple. So the person at the short end of the stick is the consumer, Nigerian masses. They are the ones that will have to purchase bread for 1,200 to 500 naira. Bread that was about 600 to 700 naira 3 months ago is now 1,200 to 1,500, and the same applies to all items. When we talk about 26% inflationary rate, don't forget that figure was given by Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, NBS. Yes. NBS is a government agency. They will never give you a figure that tells you the whole truth. They will give you a conservative figure for even national security.
Well, in their defense, they say that they stick to the rules and they follow.
What do you want?
Data is separate.
What do you want them to tell you? That they don't follow the rules? Of course, they will say they follow the rules. But you and I know that anytime government gives you any figure, you are better off taking it with a pinch of salt. If government says 10 people died, maybe you need to add one figure in front of it to come close to what the truth is. What I am trying to say is that I have other reliable figures that have given a food inflation rate to be 30% plus. Between today and yesterday. So I have cause to believe that 26% released by NBS may not reflect the truth about what is going on out there, even though it gives an idea that, look, the price of goods are moving up, right? It gives that impression clearly. But He also suggests that the level of inflation is, likely to be more than what has been officially released by federal government of Nigeria. Since that is the issue, we need to begin to think seriously about where this leaves off Nigerian masses. Nigerian masses are really dying. Do you understand that? Go to the health sector. If you go to the health sector, if you are on prescription drug, right? Maybe you have some challenges like BP, some challenges like what do they call diabetes type 1, type 2. If you are on those prescription drugs, you will be on them for life. Do you understand what I'm saying? What that means is that you have to keep buying them at the prevailing market price. So if you are on a BP drug that you were purchasing at X amount when the figure was denominated to the dollar, naira to the dollar 700, and today it is 1,150. What that means is that the price of that particular drug, and indeed all drugs, because most of the drugs are imported. Do you understand that? Even those that are not imported, the raw materials are imported mostly. What does that tell you? Whether we like it or not, many more Nigerians will have to abandon such medications when they can no longer afford it. Where does that leave you? Complications, death, hunger. So government needs to do something about the two-headed policies that have crippled the country's economy. Peg the naira to the dollar, and do something about fuel subsidy. Even if you don't revert to subsidy of 197 to per pump price of fuel, right? Fix it somewhere and stay there for the next 6 months before you review. It is your country. IMF and World Bank have no right to come here and tell us how to live.
Well, that is what I was about to...
Let them stop giving us loans.
Oh, that's what I was about to just
that's the way into now. Yes.
But I'd like to tell our viewers our phone lines are open, so you can call in to make your contributions or ask your questions. But you're talking about that loan. What is meant for, there's a part that is meant for, supposed to be for education and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Do you believe we might begin to see a difference in how loans are being expended in the country? At the end of the day, if there is guarantee that the loans will be utilized in the manner they say they will be, do you think it's a good idea in the long run? If only we can get that assurance.
I am not particularly against loans, right? I'm not against loans. But I believe that loans must be tied to productive activities, right? It means that every loan you take must be tied to an item, a capital item through which the loan can be repaid.
Is education one of those?
It's one of those, because I believe education is one of the areas where you need to really invest if you want to.
Well, isn't it a long term?
It's a long term, of course, yes, but there is hope. That you don't need to import engineers, you don't need to import doctors, you don't need to import professionals to take care of certain things because your educational system can produce them. You are saving costs. Nigerians don't need to also leave the country. They don't need to japa, which is the current, craze. They don't need to, because the system is good enough. Do you understand what I'm saying? In fact, if you have security, you have light, you have infrastructure, you have healthcare, you have roads, you have airport aviation that is fairly developed, Nigerians out there are eager to return home. So if you deploy such loans to take care of some of these things, you will be able to, in the long run, open up the economy to yield enough as to take care of those loans. That's what I'm saying. What is happening in Nigeria now is simply the Nigerian economy is stifled. It's not growing. But the economy is sort of cramped, is shackled by certain policies. Those policies must release the economy so that the nation's economy will be able to rev. I believe the nation's annual budget can hit 100 150 trillion in the next 3 to 5 years if you open up the economy. Nigeria is not producing, as far as I am concerned. Because if you look at the items that will enable states to really grow, enable regions in Nigeria to really grow into hubs and so on and so forth, they are still tied to the federal government. See, things like railway, electricity, things like security. And I keep telling you, until you deal with the issue of internal security, there is nothing, there's no magic. Agriculture will never change. And the nation's economy, the mainstay of the Nigerian economy, is not even oil. Our mainstay has always been agriculture. So if you want to recover the nation's economy, deal with the reason why the farmers are no longer going to farm. It's simple. It's not rocket science. You don't need any professor of economics to explain this. The farmers are no longer producing. They can't go to farm. Even where they manage to go, in so many places, Niger, Zamfara, so many places, they have to pay bandits to access their farms. And when they farm, they still have to pay these terrorists to be able to harvest. Do you see how terrible things are? So when they take the bit they will use on their families, the ones that will be taken to the market, they will have to add something there to cover the money they pay the bandits and terrorists. And what is the government plan to end terrorism and banditry? That's the question. That's why I said, is it not time for Nigeria to implement community police and state police? If we are afraid of abuse, why can't the president, since he formed one of the cardinal reasons he was elected, he said he was going to do something about state police and community police. Why is it that the president 3 months, 4 months, 5 months after being sworn in has not constituted a technical committee to advise him on how to go about it? Since he's afraid that the outright, implementation of such a policy will, may produce a counter effect, then you put in place a study group. Nigeria is one of the 26 countries of the world that practice federalism. We are the only country practicing federalism that is practicing centralized police system. And yet we are crying of insecurity. How can you cry of insecurity?
But if the president was to begin this process, it will take quite a while.
It doesn't matter. Start. It does not matter. We will see the sincerity that, look, this thing we need to do it, but I don't know how. That these are a team of experts. Please, in 3 months, tell us what to do. And after 3 months, let the experts come and say, look, Oga, we never finished. We still need to visit 1 or 2 more countries. There is something we need to further verify. Then you add another 3 months. But Nigerians will see that you're moving in that direction. But there is nothing to suggest that the president is interested in community police and the state police, and without dealing with internal security. You cannot recover agriculture in Nigeria. Can't you see where we are? So if you are not ready to deal with the foundation of the problem, anything you are building on it will not stand. How can you build something on nothing and expect it to stand, as the lawyers would say? You need to go down to the foundation. Yes, the president was able to sign one of the few things he did when he assumed office was to sign into law electricity deregulation from exclusive list to the concurrent list. Where is the technical committee working on how the states and the regions can partner with federal government to begin electricity generation? Nigeria needs to, South Africa, that is about 1/3 or 1/4 of the population of Nigeria, generates over 40,000 megawatts of electricity. I think about 45,000 megawatts. Nigeria is not distributing up to 5,000 as we speak. A country as big, do you understand what I'm saying? Nigeria needs a minimum of 50,000 megawatts of electricity, and federal government cannot generate it. It must be done in conjunction with the states. The federal government needs a technical committee to work on the details. The devil, they say, is in the details. Go there and tell us. Bring in the willing states. It should be a coalition of the willing. Let the states that want to give themselves electricity partner with federal government. Generate what we call counterpart funding. So when we take loans, we will see what we are tying the loans to. Yes, part of what they want to do in the loan they took, or they want to take, the fresh one, is about electricity. But I want to see that deployed. It's not throwing money at the problem. You will now carry the money and dump on Jenkos and Discos. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because that is the next thing they will do. You will dump the money, do you know the number of bailouts federal government under Buhari gave to Discos and Jenkos? Do you know that up to 10% of that money has not been recovered? So if you give them more money, are you not pouring water in a basket? It will flow away. We need a technical committee. We need to bring in the states into the mix, so that we will begin to develop regional hubs. So when you say you have a national grid, no, what you need, Nigeria has overgrown a national grid, because many more houses, every house in Nigeria needs to be linked to electricity. And as you and I speak, the number of houses in Nigeria that are linked to electricity are not yet up to 20%. So you need to bring in the states, so you have cluster of states that can help the federal government to develop what you call regional grids. These regional grids will take care of sections of the country.
Well, that's interesting. I believe there's, to an extent, something of that nature happening in those states, but we'll have to get more details to know what it really means.
Yeah, that's progressive.
Yes, but people say it's a race now, to see which states, will be first to get that mark, and we hope that it works out. But go ahead.
Okay, you see, just last night, some Anambra in Abuja, some of us, a handful of us, had stakeholders meeting with Governor Chukwuma Soludo, and this issue of power came in. Soludo said, look, I am looking for partners to get this done. Fund. States that are not coming in, it has to do with much more with funds. It's a very heavy capital outlay. That is why I am saying that federal government needs to come in, so that it will become a matter of counterpart funding. For example, like Soludo is saying, look, I need help in this area. Federal government can easily help in finding help. I don't know if you saw what I'm saying. But look, these states are ready to move, and they can recommend the state to a number of international financiers, people who, for the sake of federal government, even if federal government does not bring in money, there are financiers, there are funders of such projects that will come in because of Nigeria as a nation. It may be difficult for a state which is a subnationality to be able to pull that off. That's why I said the federal government has to roll out. They must come out and help the states to implement this laudable law that has been brought into existence. If you bring the law into existence, which gives the states power to generate electricity and distribute, funding becomes the next thing Soludo said so last night.
All right, we'll see how who wins that race. This is one of those things where we are happy to see competition, because anybody who wins, the country wins. So let's just quickly end this part of the program on issues within the National Assembly. I don't know if you saw Senator Aliu Ndume, walking out yesterday, although he returned. But it's been some sort of recurring issue where some members of the Senate have been calling out the Senate President's method of leadership. The other day we saw Senator Abu Elisha accusing the Senate President of being involved in his removal by the appeal court. The other day we also saw some senators, including Senator Aliu Ndume, about last week or so, saying the same, speaking up to the Senate President that history would judge him and that if he doesn't do things the right way. I'd just like to get your thoughts on this. Do you think because this is the Senate, this is lawmakers, it's just a part of debate and it's part of the culture and it's a good thing?
You know, I was in the Senate for at least a decade. So I understand how the Senate runs. The Senate rules are often very clear on most of these things. And I was trying to understand what Senator Ali Dume was saying or trying to do. He was talking about Order 51. Somebody else, I can't remember the name now, was citing Order 64 or Order 54. Both orders, if you look at their express provision, it sums up into one thing. The express provisions sum up to a review of a motion. But the position of the Senate President was that, look, we have passed this level. I therefore rule you out of order. I believe that as a principal officer of the Senate, he was a bit overreaching. And in fact,
who are you referring to?
Ali Dume, to tackle the Senate President in the way and manner he did. You know, yes, he has been in the Senate a lot longer than Senator Godswill Oboto Akpabio. You know, yes, but then Akpabio is the Senate President now. And he's not particularly a rookie. Don't forget he was in the Senate before, even though he left shortly after. But even then, he was also, as at that time, I mean the Senate President, as at that time, he was also a principal officer because he was elected then as I think deputy. He was elected minority leader of the Senate. You know, do you understand? Leading the PDP before he cross-carpeted. The point I am trying to say is that I see this as a personal fight, not really a problem of the leadership style of the Senate President. I am not holding brief for him. I'm not his spokesperson. I don't even know him personally, but I think he is a basic guy. He is, I mean, the Senate President. He can get by, with any senator there. And if Alain Dume has seen that there is something faulty in the leadership style, there's a way he can also go about it. Particularly for the motion he wanted, passed. Yes, the motion itself, I believe he had some merit. And if you really wanted that motion to be passed, you have a privilege, as a principal officer of the Senate, to approach the Senate President, even in the plenary there. Do you understand that? Yeah. And off the mic, that reminds me. That reminds me, off the mic, Honorable Minister. It's still the same.
It was flipped back then. It was on the other side of it.
It's still the same Senate President. Then he was coming as a minister, of Niger Delta. What I'm trying to say is that, look, they don't need this. Do you understand that? If the goal is to have certain emotions passed, he as a principal officer, Alain Dume, can always get the Senate President to really reconsider his position of ruling him out of order. And of course, ultimately, even the motion can be resubmitted the following day if you reach an understanding as a principal officer with your colleagues. And of course, there is no way the Senate President will really belligerently refuse to consider what the majority of senators really want. This is it. Then look at that of Elisha.
Abo. Yes.
Elisha Labo has always been in the news for the wrong reason. You remember I started with the time he slapped a girl in a sex toy shop somewhere here in Abuja. I don't know how that matter has been resolved, but it's the same man. And now he accused the Senate President of being responsible for his ouster from the Senate that he was responsible for his loss at the Court of Appeal. And that not only him, that 5 other senators, including Senator Jules Okalo, would soon follow. You know, beyond the controversy surrounding that senator, I am quite intrigued. I'm interested in what he is saying. Because the last I checked, the Senate President is presiding over the legislature, the Senate. And the Court of Appeal, where his election petition was decided, is another arm of government. So, is he now telling us something we don't know? Is he saying that our judiciary has gotten to the point that the powers that be decide what justice is? That is what I'm taking away from what he has said. Even though on Arise TV, I had him attempt to apologize, yeah. But even in his apology, he indicted the judiciary the more. Look at what he said. He said that, that now he is satisfied that the Senate President was not behind the problem. Do you understand what I'm saying? What that means is that somebody else. You get the point? So, who could that be? Who are those who are responsible for miscarriage, travesty of justice in Nigeria? To the point that they will have to decide who stays in the Senate and who goes, instead of the tribunals and the appeal courts deciding. It is not decided by people who hold certain positions in the country. This, for example, the Senate President are suspected by Labo, which of course, you know, if he rescinded, he may be doing that simply to save face and to, you know, let the sleeping dog lies. That's the way I see it. Like I said, beyond all that, there is something Labo was saying, that the justice is not coming from the courts anymore. And this is what should worry Nigerians. You know, so I believe that, you know, journalists need to, you know, chase Labo around a little more and see what can be teased at. If it is not Senate President, then who?
Well, you know, it's interesting, you know, because this is, I believe, in the span of a couple of months, the second time a senator has made certain comments that affected,
you remember, told us how he was securing justice from the wife. He was the president of the Court of Appeal. That was what he said.
Yeah, what he said. Yeah,
he was helping his friends.
Yeah, so
we
hope.
He said so.
We hope it's something we get to.
You know, the video is everywhere.
Yes.
You know, and that matter has not been resolved. Journalists need to really be on top.
Although she came out and refuted it, but anyway,
we don't expect her to come and say this.
It's a case of for investigation. Yeah. Thank you so much for this. If you I will crave your indulgence, just a couple of minutes. I just want to get your thoughts on a little bit of what's trending online, particular video. But for now, this segment is done. Thank you so much for giving me your thoughts on that. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, we'll take a look at the trending focus for today. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. This is still the Polity reaching you live from Abuja. Let's take a look at what's been trending online. This is from a few days ago, but we'll have a recent reply. It's happened in Ogun State, apparently, where a resident of an estate in the state rejected what he said to be palliative from the government as regards ameliorating the hardship of Nigerians. We'll take a look at that video now, and then when we return, we'll take a look at the response from the Ogun State government. Let's take a look at that now.
Black I1 Sosa. I am the chairman of Shokaye. For now, I am the chairman Shokaye CDA. And I was just at home now, and they brought this for me as palliative for the whole of Shokaye estate. In this estate, we have 147 houses with families and tenants living there. I'm confused now. I don't know how to share this for 147 households in Shokaye estate. If you guys, the government, I'm talking to Dakpo Abiodun now. If you people know you cannot do something, don't do it. We are not hungry, we are not beggars. So we don't need your rice as palliative. This is not even one bag. This is not up to an eighth of a bag of rice. Tí ó bá ṣe é ṣe, ẹ má force ara yín láti ṣe, à ń ṣe lébi ń bí báyìí. So èmi aláìkí ń gbé rice yìí padà, kó bá mi gbé lọ fún Dàpọ̀ Abíọ́dún, kó gbé padà sí ọ̀gá ẹ̀ Tinubu tó rán, kó gbé fún àwọn ọmọ wọn. À ń ṣe lébi, Ọlọ́run ò dẹ̀ ní ṣe wálé lébi. So that is it. We don't need this rice. If you want to give us palliative, don't insult us. This is an insult. Shokeye Estate refused to be insulted. God bless you.
Welcome back. You saw that was an aggrieved resident there. But the Ogun State government official Twitter handle responded to that. He said, at a meeting by the leadership of the council to explain some palliatives meant to alleviate the pains occasioned by the removal of fuel subsidy were distributed, stakeholders said the formula used to share bags of rice is the best they've seen in the state. Speaking at the event, Bishop Ezekiel, who represented Khan, described a trending video as a hatchet job and urged the public to disregard it. Khan was given 1,000 bags of rice for our members who are vulnerable. We shared this diligently, and Sokoye, like every community, has got his own share. How then can he say only one bag was to be shared by households in the estate? He is definitely up to something bad, and we plead that he should be ignored. You can see the meeting there. There's a different Khan representatives and others. Those are the tweets. Let me see if there's any more there. Speaking on that matter, but anyway, that is the situation of things, and it speaks to what we were talking about earlier. And I'd just like to get your thoughts one more time on this issue of palliatives, and if at all you think it ends up the way it should. I mean, have you seen, from your own account, persons who this reached and they felt that, well, the government has helped me today?
I talked about credible, authentic social register. Without it, you will have problems like this. The man of God that was accusing the other person of doing a hatchet job, he's talking out of misplaced perspectives. What we ought to see is officially the quantity that went to that estate. Simple. Because you should have channels through which the rice was distributed. Somebody should sign out for communities. If the man was lying, you would show us the number of bags of rice that went to that estate and who signed it out. Is it the same person, or did somebody else sign out enough quantity of rice for that estate, diverted, and then gave the man 1/4 of a bag? What he should even be less than 1/4 of a bag of rice. The point is, I still believe that we have not arrived at appropriate social register. That is where to start. And you see, INEC has done something in that direction. And all you need to do is to share data. Every part of this country is part of a particular ward. Do you understand that? Nigeria, INEC has been able to subdivide the entire country into 8,812 wards. And they went further to subdivide the wards into 176,616 polling units. You can even stop at the wards. Do you understand that? At the ward level, it's possible, because if you understand the ward to be a kind of a village, right? A village setting, it's possible to understand the groups that make up the ward. Do you get the point? You can understand the groups that make up the ward: youth, women, men, professional associations, and so on and so forth, particularly in the rural areas where this targeted population, majority of them should be living. Do you understand that? But government is not following that process. They come up with some, funny figures, and that's why I keep saying, I have tried to do a bit of research around this social register, and I have called my village. I've called my village. I've been asking my village, Apatete in Anambra State. I want to know, those of you who are on the social register.
But while speaking about the register, is there also an issue with communication here? Would it be out of place for the government and the relevant bodies to simply say, this is what we have, this is what we've been given, this is how much is going to so, and then just, release it to the public so everyone can follow along?
That's what they ought to do.
And also the federal government, do you think they are doing enough job in monitoring, the funds they've given to states?
They are not doing anything of such. What the federal government has done is to simply distribute money to state governments. And of course, you know that the state governments, as it were, are all run by different political parties. And they concentrate on their party members. Not just their party members, on those who help them to win an election. So they are even converting these palliatives to campaign materials. In other words, they are targeting those who help them and those who are likely to help them in future. So if you are talking about social register, it's not what themselves are looking at. They are looking at the database of their members who have formed their political parties. So when they come to a town, they will look for a contact person. And who is that contact person? The party leader in the place. They will give him whatever. And then himself will look for the people that work with him. What has come there, he may share into two, keep one for himself, and then distribute what he can. So by the time he gets to the elder statesman we saw now, it's 1/4 of a bag of rice that is left. So this kind of cries will continue because the whole thing is politicized. If a federal government had actually removed politics from development of a social register, it would have been different. Because if you look at trader money, all of them, they follow the same trade. Trader money was purely politics. Do you understand it? It's purely politics. Because they are looking for people who will believe in their doctrine and therefore follow them to the polls, ultimately. That's what this whole thing is about. And that is why we are not getting it right. If you go down to the words, call for organized bodies. I just talked about organized bodies. Let there be a way of authenticating people who will get into these register. Then you will give clear indices of those who qualify to get the intervention, because it's not supposed to be going to everybody. It is supposed to be going to those
most vulnerable.
Who are vulnerable. So even the man you saw is not qualified to get the rice.
Well, all right, that's fair enough. I guess we'll have to end it there. Thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. The pleasure is always mine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll leave you now with a special report by yours truly on how some Abuja businesses are coping with the removal of fuel subsidy and how they are trying to cut energy costs by transitioning into cooking gas power generators or natural gas, compressed natural gas as is commonly called. We'll take a look at that report, but that is how we end the program for today. Thank you so much for joining us every weekday. The Polity reaches you live from Abuja at 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Join us tomorrow once again. Mercy Babajide will be here to take over the program. Bye for now. Have a nice day.